Somewhere in Washington, a folded piece of paper sits on a desk that runs the most powerful space agency on Earth. It's not a briefing, not a classified file, not a warning about an asteroid. It's a letter. Handwriting still learning how to stay inside the lines. From a 10-year-old girl. One sentence. That's all it takes to shake 20 years of settled science. Can you please give Pluto its planet back? Nobody expects an answer. Least of all her. But weeks later, in front of the United States Senate, microphones live, cameras rolling. The head of NASA opens his mouth to answer a budget question, and instead says the one sentence no NASA administrator has ever dared say on the record. I am very much in the camp of make Pluto a planet again. Silence. Because that's not nostalgia talking. That's a confession. Somewhere, 20 years ago, science made a mistake, and the universe has spent every year since quietly building the evidence to prove it. Here's the case they never wanted reopened. August 24th, 2006. Prague. A room of astronomers votes. 3 sentences. That's all it takes to erase a planet. Orbit the sun. Check. Be round. Check. Clear your neighborhood of debris. Fail. Pluto shares its region of space with thousands of icy neighbors. So, gone. Reclassified overnight. Dwarf planet. A name that sounds like a consolation prize. Textbooks rewritten. Songs rewritten. A generation of kids taught a lie by omission, that Pluto was never good enough. But nobody in that room asked the obvious question. Jupiter shares its orbit with over 100,000 asteroids. Earth, our home, shares its orbit with 10,000. Nobody demoted them. So why Pluto? Because in 2006, nobody had actually seen it up close. Not once. Not ever. They demoted a world they'd never truly looked at. 9 years later, that would change everything. 9 years later. A spacecraft the size of a piano, traveling 3 billion miles, gets one chance, one flyby, to answer that question. New Horizons doesn't find a dead rock. It finds mountains of solid water ice, standing as tall as the Alps. But out here, at minus 230 degrees Celsius, that ice is harder than granite. It finds glaciers, not of water, of frozen nitrogen, flowing like slow rivers across a plain the size of Texas. It finds volcanoes, not spewing lava, spewing ice, slush of water, ammonia and nitrogen, erupting from a mountain over 4 kilometers high. And then it finds the thing that changes everything. Buried under miles of frozen crust, heated not by the sun, but by radioactive decay deep inside its own core. A hidden ocean of liquid water. On a world 40 times farther from the sun than we are. A world they called dead. And Pluto had one more secret. One nobody in that Prague meeting room ever accounted for. It wasn't even traveling alone, because Pluto has a partner, Charon. Half its size, so massive that Pluto doesn't orbit it. They orbit each other, spinning around empty space between them, locked forever, face to face. Scientists now believe they were born the same way twin stars sometimes are, in a collision so precise, so perfectly timed, that 2 worlds briefly fused together, then pulled apart without ever letting go. Charon still carries the scars. Canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon, torn open when its own internal ocean froze and cracked the moon from the inside. And at its North Pole, a blood-red stain, gas stolen from Pluto's thin atmosphere, cooked by radiation for millions of years into a rust-colored war paint. A dwarf planet wearing its neighbor's skin. An ocean. Ice volcanoes. A stolen atmosphere. A twin born from collision. That's the evidence file sitting on NASA's desk the day that letter arrived. So in 2026, when that letter reaches NASA's front door, The agency doesn't laugh it off. They read it in a Senate hearing. And the man in charge of America's space program doesn't dodge the question. He tells Congress NASA is already preparing scientific papers, an actual case built for the astronomical community to reopen a 20-year-old decision. Not because a child asked nicely, because the evidence had already made the case for her. An ocean, ice volcanoes, a moon born in a cosmic collision, chemistry that, somewhere else in the universe, adds up to life. That's not a rock drifting through the dark. That's a world. Here's the part science doesn't like to say out loud. In 2006, we didn't vote Pluto off the list because we finally understood it. We voted it off because we didn't understand it at all. We looked at 3 billion miles of darkness, saw a small, quiet dot, and decided it had nothing left to say. We were wrong. It had oceans. It had fire made of ice. It had a companion it would never let go of, spinning together through the dark since before either of them had a name. It just took a spacecraft, a scientist willing to say so on the record, and one 10-year-old with a pen to make us look again. So the next time you look up, past the planets we all memorized as kids, out to that small, cold edge of the solar system, remember, there's a world out there still waiting for its name back, and it might just get it. If you want to be there the moment the vote is finally called, subscribe. This story isn't over. It's just getting its second chance.